Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 21 of the Herald's Horn, a podcast that is part of the One Shot Podcast Network. That's right, we have joined a podcast network. One Shot is a great group of people that are making a great number of shows, ostensibly all focused on tabletop role-playing, except for, that's right, this one. You will be learning more about that network after the break when I chat with the one and only Tracy, the project manager for One Shot. We have a great chat about community. What is community? What is Tracy up to? What is One Shot all about? It's a great conversation. You won't want to miss it. On the first half, Emma and I just chatted up about the expected topics. That's right. Wizards of the Coast controls Commander now. There was just the first regional championship in a while. It's a great episode. Let's get into it. Hello, it's time for the Herald's Horn. My name is Cal Jones, and today I am joined by the NHL season's number one fan. It's Emma Partlow. Say hello, Emma.
Hello, Emma.
Emma, how are you today? What's poppin'? What's crack-a-lackin'? What's happening?
Well, hockey's back, as you alluded to, which is great. The Carolina Panthers still suck, in a shocking revelation. And for some reason, Sam Darnold is 5-0 this season. So I don't know what's going on.
All right, let's run the song. And welcome back. As always, we are going to jump directly into the news. It's just Emma and I on this very chill, very uneventful Tuesday. Of course, you're listening on a Thursday if you're a real cool person and you listen immediately on release day, but we're recording this on Tuesday. As always, nothing at all has happened since the last episode, since those Commander bans, except for, of course, Wizards of the Coast being ceded control of the Commander format by the Commander Rules Committee, following a lot of threats and very understandable concerns for their own safety following the ban announcement and the absolutely visceral over-the-top reaction from, I was gonna say I was gonna say the community or whatever, but no, individuals who are terrible people. The RC willingly has given up, the Commander Rules Committee has willingly given up control of the format to Wizards of the Coast. Obviously, by the time you're listening to this, it's old news. This announcement came like 3 days after the release of the last episode. It was a week ago now, so a week and a half ago.
Last Tuesday.
Yeah. Last Monday?
It was last Monday or Tuesday. It was on the weekly MTG stream, which is normally Tuesday, but it might have been a Monday.
Oh, they put out the article. The RC announced it, and Wizards put out the first article on Monday, and then they discussed it on weekly MTG. After kind of crazy stuff. You know, this is the kind of event that a lot of people have, some people have been very vocal about wishing for. Some people have been very vocal about wishing that it would never happen. To me, it did always somewhat feel a little bit like an inevitability, even if that was like 30 years down the road or whatever, assuming that we're all here playing Magic the Gathering 30 years from now, which is the hope. But there's a lot of things that could be said about it, but I think that everyone involved did the best job that they could, and the decision is probably the right one given the circumstances, because like not only can the Rules Committee not quite literally protect themselves physically against credible threats or what have you, but I think it is also a very real possibility that the format grew too big for them to be able to effectively manage, which was something that Jim hinted at in his little letter about the situation as well, which was heartbreaking. I like Jim a lot. But I think if I'm going to have a take about the whole situation or whatever, I think, at least from the Rules Committee perspective, I think that they all did a great job, and I hope that they all get to live in much more peace now.
I agree. Like, I'm going to be honest, the whole situation's kind of shitty, let's be honest. Like, my heart goes out to the RC because this shouldn't have happened. It should never have gotten this far. And, you know, when there comes a situation where people's lives are being threatened, like, something needs to happen, right? You need to protect those people. And you don't want to see that, especially when it's your friends and people you respect in the space. So it is it's been a very tough time. But I think, you know, after the weekly MTG stream last week, things are starting to finally settle down.
Yep. So the stream, we're just gonna gloss over the first part here. Yeah, the Commander RC felt that they had to hand off the format to Wizards, and that is what has happened. And now, the new reality that we live in is that Wizards of the Coast now fully controls Commander. However, I will say, on the day of Monday, I was very pessimistic. I got to make some nice tweets that were like, oh, I love Wizards employees, but boy, that dang huge corporation. You know, some classic stuff. But on the Tuesday, the day after, good old Blake and Gavin and Aaron Forsyth all got on stream together and chatted about where Wizards was, who's going to be handling things, what their ideas are. And I think especially Aaron Forsyth, who is the VP of design, in short, his title is more involved than that, but effectively the big bad boss of design for Magic the Gathering. He at least said all of the right things. Yes, Wizards is here to make money, but what makes Wizards the most money theoretically in the long term is A, Magic the Gathering continue to exist, and B, people loving playing Magic the Gathering, and the way that people are doing that the most right now is by playing Commander, and so it is quite literally capitalistically incentivized for them to do their best to keep Commander running in a way that makes people happy, which, yes. And also, beyond that part of the answer, Aaron said something which was very true, and Gavin very much echoed it, as did Blake. You know, those three guys who were on the stream together have a combined, I believe, nearly 40 years of time in the ringer at Wizards. And that's with barely including Blake, because Aaron's been there over 20. Gavin's been there
Blake's
for
been
13.
at the company for 10.
Okay. So a little bit over 40 years combined experience between these three guys. And up until recently, the huge explosion of popularity of Magic the Gathering and its revenue has finally gotten everyone inside of the building paid much better, from what I understand. But for a good portion of these guys' careers, they were not being paid very much money for the work they were doing. Very much a passion job. And I am willing to believe that people such as Gavin and Blake and Aaron are largely keeping their jobs and continuing to do these jobs because they are passionate about Magic the Gathering and love Magic the Gathering. So if it's people like Aaron and Gavin and others inside the building, who I was going to say know and trust, but parasocially know and trust, or in the case of a couple of them, personally know and trust, then cool. But where the worry still lies is that, there are people above Aaron Forsyth at Wizards of the Coast, and there are people above Wizards of the Coast at Hasbro. And it could just be as simple as one of those people making some really harebrained call that they don't fully understand because they think it'll affect the bottom line X way, that then, can send things hurtling around a little bit. Something that was a little encouraging, though, to me is that they did say they want to use the Pauper format panel. Shout out the PFP. Represent, Emma. Represent. Choo-choo.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a catchphrase? You have a catchphrase that you say?
No, we don't have a catchphrase. We're not quite Mighty Morphin Power Rangers level yet.
There's 7 of you. You just transform into a huge...
Internationally as well, so
Yes.
It's really hard for us to be in the same space at the same time.
Yes. But if you all did, you would just all say, keep Magic...
Poppin' time.
It's poppin' time. And then you would all transform into a massive brainstorm.
Sure.
A ponder.
Let's go with that.
A preordain. A massive fog. Blah.
One massive monarch token. There we go. We did it. We got there.
Whoa! Don't want to talk about monarch. Whoa!
But they would like to use the Pauper format panel kind of as a baseline for something like a Commander format panel, including different people from the community who I would assume I would hope they would start with basically the members of the rules committee if they are willing to continue doing such work, to advise Magic, to advise Wizards of the Coast, but I believe ostensibly Gavin, on what the community is thinking, what these leaders in the community are thinking, what the leaders in the community think people around them are thinking, and giving that info up to Wizards, and then Wizards then can choose whether or not they'd like to act on that information. Is that how the Pauper format panel currently works, Emma?
Yeah, so the Pauper format panel, there's 6 to 7 of us, and we're international. So I'm the representative for the UK, you've got someone in Europe, you've got someone in Brazil, you've got a couple of people in America, including Gavin, and then you've got a few folks in Japan. We all come from different backgrounds, so I'm definitely more casual community focused, whereas a couple people on the panel are more competitive focused.
Yeah, definitely. Alex is the one who always jumps to mind. The guy who's been digging into the metagame numbers for years now and writes about it.
Yeah, right. So Alex is one of them. We have someone on the panel who won the only Pauper PTQ back when PTQs were a thing. So yeah, we talk about Pauper a lot. We have a little Discord channel. We just keep things rolling. Granted, it's cool that we're able to prove that this can work. And you have to understand Pauper is the smallest Magic format versus the biggest Magic format, which is Commander. So while we have the blueprint of the Pauper format panel, you can expect the Commander one to be different just because the format is bigger and you're probably going to have more than 7 people just curating that. And it'll be interesting to see what happens. I think we're proof, as in the Pauper panel, that this can work, and people are generally excited by the idea because they've seen the evidence that the PFP is able to do this stuff. And with Gavin overseeing it as well, no better person to run this, as proof through the PFP.
Mm-hmm. I think that aspect of the format will definitely be pretty interesting. And if that's where we're gonna go with it, and if I don't want to say if they actually listen or whatever, but that is kind of the modus operandi, right? If Wizards of the Coast is interested in listening to the community panel and does do so consistently, whatever that looks like, then it at least keeps up the semblance of, or still is about as close as we'll get to it being a community run format at this point. This is a much better alternative than them just taking it in and it being a massive black box until every, ban announcement, much like the other formats technically are.
And this is what Gavin and Aaron said on the stream. It's we really want this to remain community focused because it's the community that plays Commander. So it makes absolute sense for them to be involved in this. And I recommend watching that stream. Sure, it's been a week ago now, but the insights and the sentiments were really refreshing. You had Aaron talking about, Jeweled Lotus as a card we probably shouldn't have printed. That might have been a mistake. And, we're not going to make any ban decisions until there is a Commander panel committee in place. We're not making any decisions without them. A lot of this is just very pragmatic and wise. They're not looking to rush in and just come up with a quick solution. They're looking to find the right people and take their time, much like what Gavin and Aaron did with the Pauper format panel, because that was their idea. Aaron Forsyth pushed that idea behind the scenes at Wizards. Fun fact for you at home.
There you go. Little known fact.
So yeah, I recommend watching that stream just because the conversation just felt very honest and genuine, as much as it can be for a company like Wizards having that discussion.
Definitely. So yeah, I guess now all we can do is wait and see. There's a lot of stuff to be done. Wizards isn't exactly a company that moves quickly on the best of days, and it has been, like we said, about a week and a half now since Wizards was given control of the format formally, and that's not very long. However, they have said that by Vegas, they will have attempted to have some kind of first draft done of this new system, a bracketing system, a ranking system, a buckets system, where surely not every card in Magic the Gathering, but they're going to take up the vibes of a lot of Magic the Gathering cards and try to put them into one of 4 buckets. Either like 1, which is this card is like readily acceptable in any EDH deck. You'll see these cards in pretty much every precon, that kind of stuff, all the way up to 4, which is like, oh, advanced caution. This stuff is dangerous for not dangerous, but this stuff will probably get you quite a lot of ire if you're at the wrong table, whether it be on a pure power level or on assault level. Like, they're 2 marquee example cards for the situation where, like, Vampiric Tutor, very strong card, quite pricey card. In Wizards terms, not very accessible. My apologies. And then also Armageddon, which, if you've ever cast an Armageddon in an EDH game, or if you've seen an Armageddon cast in an EDH game, you know how people feel about that. Emma, how's that Armageddon deck coming along for you?
Yeah, so the thing is, I've kind of petered off Commander a little bit, not because of this whole announcement and stuff.
Just before. It's just before. It's been a while, yeah.
Canadian Highlander's my new obsession, so I've been playing a ton of that. I'm the person that's like, yeah, Armageddon's fine, like, it happens.
Yeah.
But the best thing you can do is just shuffle up and start again. And be like, hey, can you cut the Armageddon out? Yep. This is not the deal. Let's try this again.
I forget who it was who was talking about it, because I consume way too much media. Oh, it was Brian Koval. Classic. It was Brian Koval talking about his approach to casual games, which I think I'm going to try to use a little bit more going forward. There's a very real solution to like a lot of these problems in EDH games, where you can, like, if you have either talked about the vibe of the table, or you can kind of sense the vibe of the table or the power level or whatever you want to call it, and you draw a card that you think is probably out of bounds, you can't just show it to your opponents and be like, hey, I'm not actually interested in casting this card in this game. Can I discard it and draw another one? And that works.
That's a cool idea. Or I've done it before. Yeah. I've just not played the card.
Yeah, just ignored it. Take your draw step on the chin. You can handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, this is a dead card. Yes. I'm just not going to play this. Okay. This is discard.
Hopefully I get to loot or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just get rid of it. Yeah, definitely.
You don't have to play all the cards in your hand at all times, by the way. Yep. You do have a decision, which is what Magic the Gathering is. It's a ton of micro decisions put into one place.
Yep.
Wild, right?
Yep. So everyone has had a fun time talking about this new system as well. It does seem relatively hard to implement in a wide-scale acceptance way, but hey, if it's Wizards that's doing it, then there at least will be some level of institutional pickup from people, hopefully.
I think Wizards announcing this last week was very smart on their part.
Why is that?
Just because, we had death threats, we had a lot of anger, we had a lot of hate in the community. And the best way to suck all that hate out the air is to make a memeable template about power rankings on Magic cards. Because if there's one thing Magic players love talking about, is power discrepancies at Magic. Yeah. So it just shifted the narrative from getting angry over, commodities and the value of banned cards to, oh, look at this silly little table thing, I'm going to meme this. And that's what was... And I bet you that was intentional by Wizards, because it just stopped the harassment like that. And it was very clever by Wizards. Mm-hmm. And that's why it came out early, because even Wizards said on the stream last week, it's a work in progress. This is not final. This is just a very rough outline with a very rough graphic. That was all intentional, just to try and change the conversation from, hey, stop, sending death threats to RC to... What about Armageddon?
Go chat about this over there. Yeah.
Go chat about this thing. It's very clever by Wizards. Yep. They did that because it provided some safety through just changing the subject.
Yep. Blake is very good at his job, one could say.
People do not realize how good he is at his job.
Blake is
hopefully one day people will, but it's just yeah.
So yeah, I look forward to seeing what they can accomplish there. I was kind of surprised that they shot this out, but to your point, I think it was a smart move. And I think a lot of people also didn't really pick up on this, but you can kind of connect the dots in between this and the last 2 quarterly updates from the Rules Committee. This was kind of already in the works in a very early stage in between the Rules Committee and Wizards of the Coast already. This is like a Rules Committee project that was definitely going to start with the Silver Border project that the Rules Committee was talking about, where they were going to try to find different buckets or whatever for Silver Border cards to help people play them, or, you know, whatever. But in the last quarterly update, nobody looked at it because they were too busy screaming about Mana Crypt being banned. But kind of right at the end, the Rules Committee was like, hey, we're working on this new tool with Wizards of the Coast to help you find tables easier. And I'm pretty convinced it was this one, personally. And now it's being rolled out very quickly. So we'll see what happens. Community-driven formats. The major one is down. The other major one remains. Canadian Highlander, baby.
Hell yeah.
Go, if you want to know more about community-driven formats, you can go back and listen to a wonderful interview with one Benjamin Wheeler. I'm going to go off the dome, and I'm going to say it was episode 18. So you can go and listen to episode 18, and then when that interview is wrong, just listen to all of the other episodes until you find the interview with Ben Wheeler. So,
and feel free to tweet us at tweet a cow that's incorrect.
Yes. Oh, yes. If you go and look and 18 is not right, you are legally obligated to tweet at me and say, "Hey, it was actually episode 20. It was last episode."
No, your podcast, idiot.
I've tried to name an episode off the dome so many times now, and I think I've been universally wrong. I've never. Look, this is our 21st episode. We've made a decent amount of episodes at this point. How am I supposed to remember them all? I never thought I'd get this far, Emma. Well, all right. I guess we should move on. I guess we should move on to the other major little news bit. What else has happened in the last 2 weeks, Emma? That's right. The Washington, D.C. Regional Championship. The SEG era for RCs is here. Those Azorius control players kept everyone playing long into the night. Did you get a chance to check out the tournament coverage or whatever over the weekend?
I did, because watching the SEG Con DC Regional Championship coverage just felt like a school reunion.
Oh, yeah.
It's been like 5 years-ish, give or take, since SEG last did coverage. And, you know, when it was starting with Cedric and Patrick in the booth, and then, you know, the first play of the RC was recasting Fortseas. It's like, we're just so back. This is what I remember. And it just felt like a warm hug.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
No,
it was just great.
Definitely.
The coverage was great. You know, it can't be a SCG without audio issues and technical issues, which is going to happen because it's been, you know, 5 years. Everyone's a bit rusty. But no, it was just fantastic to watch. Coverage was great. Gameplay was great. Sans Azorius control. There was good downtime in between rounds. It felt like we're kind of back. And that was great. Yeah,
exactly. Like, to your point, it was like, Reed and said in the booth, let's go to round one. Not Reed. Holy moly. Patrick and said in the booth, go to round one. Who is it? Reed Duke versus Wyatt Darby. Is it 2014 or something? What's going on here? What's happening? I'm back in my college dorm room again on a Saturday.
It's Wyatt Darby going to cast a glory brig off the top.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen.
Yes, exactly. So, yes, that it was fun to watch Pioneer, especially because I think luckily for us, Duskmourn seems to have made a much more interesting format out of Pioneer than it was before. Duskmourn and also Bloomburrow and, you know, the past couple sets, together with the bans that took place in the format a couple of months ago now, that took out Amalia and Soren. It turns out the format probably can just kind of handle Phoenix as its best deck, or its, you know, theoretically best deck. You know, if you're casting Treasure Cruise on time, you're going to be the best deck probably. But there are enough other decks and there's enough play against Izzet Phoenix, specifically the 2-mana Rule of Law, High Noon, that they printed in Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Turns out 2-mana Rule of Law that can also dome people is pretty good against Izzet Phoenix. It seems like the format can handle Phoenix being good. We saw a lot of Phoenix this weekend, but it was taken down by a Tree of Perdition plus Agatha's Soul Cauldron Rakdos combo deck. Can you tell the audience the rules text of Tree of Perdition if you happen to know it, Emma?
Let me get it up. I looked at it this morning because it's spiked in price.
It's a classic mythic.
Tree of Perdition from Eldritch Moon. It's that mythic that you never want to open in your pre-release kit. So it's a 0-13 defender. You can tap it, exchange target opponent's life total with Tree of Perdition's toughness. And I believe this is the opposite version of the green one in Innistrad.
That is correct.
Which the name escapes me. But when this got printed, I remember people going, why the hell is this card? Why does this exist? Mm-hmm. What's the point of this card? Outside of it being like a flavor nod to Innistrad. Well, now you know. It's really good with Agatha's Soul Cauldron and Marvin Murderous Mimic. So enjoy. Yep.
Yeah, it was very interesting because this deck like theoretically already existed with Soul Cauldron, but now they're playing like a 2 of Mimic, and it just gives you like effectively 2 more copies of doing it. Because Agatha's Soul Cauldron, for those who don't know, it does have an ability of tap, exile target card from a graveyard. When a creature card is exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And the card also has creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Agatha's Soul Cauldron. So you can exile a Tree of Perdition to Agatha's Soul Cauldron, put a +1/+1 counter on one of your creatures with 2 toughness, 1 toughness even, and then activate it. Oh, boom. You have removed 15 points from your opponent's life total. I don't believe there's anything in the deck that just sets their life total to 0. I don't think that'd be possible, really. But
don't think so.
But that seems pretty good to me, especially when the rest of the deck, beyond those combo pieces, pretty much are just like, it's basically Rakdos mid-range that gets to play a little funky combo thing going on, because you just get to play, you get to play Blood Tithe Harvester, you get to play Fable of the Mirror Breaker,
which is like still one of the strong. The thing is, it's really interesting to see that Sorin is now banned, which was this Rakdos mid-range deck with a combo end, and now we're seeing it again with the tree combo deck. You're also seeing it in Rakdos in Pioneer, another deck that top-8'd, the Transmogrify deck as well, that cheats in Atraxa. Some of them ran the new Valgavoth as well. So while Pioneer seems to be in this quadrant of, combo, control, aggro, and like mid-range, and they're all, rock, paper, scissoring each other, which is a pretty good sign of a healthy metagame, especially when you look at the Day 2 SCG data. It's like, at what point do we need to have the discussion about Fable and Thoughtseize in these format in Pioneer? Because it's those 2 cards that are propping up these to do the Rakdos combo stuff, basically. It's just Rakdos mid-range with a new flavor of combo.
There were like 4. Well, there was this Rakdos combo deck, which wasn't super popular at the RC. It was, I believe, brewed by the winner, Corey Lack.
Yes.
Congrats to Corey, by the way. Congratulations. Have fun on the Pro Tour.
Corey, top 8. So I do the deck entry for TCG player. At any time the tree combo top 8s in Pioneer, it is because of Corey, because they just keep revising it constantly.
Makes sense. The rest of the top 8 was like, there was Rakdos Transmogrified, there was Rakdos Aggro, there was people playing Rakdos mid-range, and these decks all have that exact same core that you were talking about of Fable of the Mirror Breaker plus Thoughtseize plus Fatal Push and everything else, and usually also for Blood Tithe Harvester. That card is just egregious. And those cards, you can kind of just put anything else around and it'll just kind of work out. The mana's great. The
even greater now with Duskmourn, because you have the new Verge land in Rakdos, which is great in Rakdos aggro. Because it's great as a splash cover.
Well, and two, the deck just gets to like, you think you have troubles, but like, they just get to play 4 Duress 2 across the deck if they need to or have to. Ob Nixilis, the Adversary, is another great sideboard card that all of the Rakdos decks just get to play if they want to or need to. It's just like, okay, here we we're worried about is it Phoenix? Let's just play some Chandra's Defeat, I guess. You can kind of just like do it all. But I don't know. Oh, special shout out to this Rakdos Cauldron deck though. It does have 6 of its 18 creatures are just from Duskborn. It gets to play 4 Fear of Missing Out, which when it enters, you get to discard, then draw, and it can also give you extra combats, but I assume the deck doesn't care about that as much. And then it does also play 2 Marvin Murderous Mimic. Man, so sick. So sick. There was also an enigmatic incarnation deck in the top 8.
That deck looks sweet because it runs all the new Overlord cards. So you have the red Overlord, the green Overlord, and some of them run the blue one. But I think it's top 8'd for sure. But it's basically like a 5-color control enchantment deck now. And it looks really sweet on camera because you run Yorion as a companion as well. So you get to run so many silver bullets. And it just looks really fun to watch. I would not play it.
No.
It's a
little too much for my...
bit too much shuffling for me.
I know, it is that I didn't think about until I was listening to Jerry T and Mason talk about Pioneer generalized on the most recent episode of the Jerry T podcast before the RC. I had kind of forgotten that this deck existed, like Enigmatic Incarnation. Like I knew that good friend of the show, Elliot Raff, was a really big proponent of the deck and did very well with it in his run at the last huge Pioneer tournament that we had. But it kind of like dropped off the map for a while because let's be real, relying in the world with Amalia and Sorin and stuff, relying on a 4 CMC enchantment that has to stick around into your end step is not the greatest plan. But now that the format has slowed down a little bit, and now that we have just gotten this set full of insane enchantment bangers, like to your point, like the Overlords, man, just stepping up to an Overlord seems pretty good. And you can go from Overlord of the Boiler Bilges up to Atraxa, in case you were wondering. That is a little 6/7 action. Right there. Wait, do you have to get another enchantment? No. Oh my gosh, it's creature card with converted mana cost. Oh gosh. Disgusting. No, you can impend Overlord of the Boiler Bilges and immediately go to Atraxa. Oh yeah, no!
When you impend it, it's in play. It's just a different typing.
Yeah, it's just an enchantment.
You can do your stuff.
Holy moly. But TLDR from that episode with Jerry T and Mason. Mason was like, I've kind of given up working on this deck, even though I think it has potential to like maybe be one of, if not the best deck, because there's just like too many knobs to turn. And I don't have that time right now, which is just like, yeah, I mean, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
I would
13,
not
14,
be surprised.
15, 16 one-ofs in this deck.
I would not be surprised in about 6 months from now, there is an Enigmatic Incarnation deck that is crushing it, and it's just one person who specifically just plays this deck and nothing else. It feels like an Archetype Master style deck, which I think Pioneer is getting to the point where you're starting to get those just because the format's been around long enough. A lot of the archetypes are starting to settle. So it just would not be surprised if someone just crushes like the next biggest Pioneer tournament with Enigmatic Incarnation.
Yeah, just like more than 3 weeks to cook on Duskborn existing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so sick. This deck is so sick.
Pioneer is in a really good spot.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I think Pioneer is missing, which is something that Modern has, is just the weird little guy decks, just like the weird, quirky tier 3, tier 4 that sometimes do well decks.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is just because the card pool isn't deep enough yet.
Yeah.
Once we hit that spot, I think Pioneer is going to be in a fantastic place. But in terms of metagame share, you know, the RC this previous weekend is just going to establish Pioneer for the next while. It seems pretty healthy. And I imagine Wizards must be happy as well, you know.
Oh, definitely.
Making the right decisions with Amalia and Sorin.
Definitely. Well, okay. That's enough about the RC. I agree with you, Emma. It was great to sit down and get to watch what felt like the good old times of competitive Magic again. And I hope they can keep it up. It was a great time. I'm sure next broadcast will be even better. And even though there won't be any coverage, I'm looking forward to going to SCG Columbus here in November. That's the next big SCG event. And you best believe I will be making the 8-minute commute to the Columbus Convention Center for jealous. That one. And it was awesome to watch Sed and Pat go at it once again. All right, well, let's do the product watch. The Product Watch is presented by Card Conduit, the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. After all, you'll need to clear out space for all the new products we're about to discuss. Brought to you by the beloved team behind Card Hoarder, Card Conduit does the hard work of getting you the best buy list prices available for your cards. All you have to do is send them one package, taking advantage of your selection of their 3 services. I use the sorted service, which has you collate and enter cards ahead of time in return for the lowest fees. Don't worry, you can just send them a huge box of random unsorted cards too, and they'll figure it out. I have used Card Conduit myself 6 different times to thin my collection and have had exclusively great experiences. Use code HORN at checkout or use the link in the podcast description to get 10% off your fees and help support the show. My 6th Card Conduit shipment did finally just get finalized. I have $250 more in my pocket and many less random playable $2 Magic the Gathering cards flying and destroying, let's say, my office. Well, we've already talked about the set a lot on the show. We've already talked about the set a lot on this episode. Duskmourn season continues, as evidenced by its effects on Pioneer and looking around formats in general. It seems like a sneaky, super powerful set. I don't think people really had it maybe pegged as that during Pioneer season, but it's kind of shaken up a lot, right?
Yeah, you're also seeing a ton of movement in Standard as well, where that's where Duskmourn's having the biggest impact, thanks to rotation.
Definitely.
With Bloomburrow's release. And the beautiful thing you have with Standard right now, you can essentially build a Duskmourn block constructed deck for like $60, and it's competitive. You have like the Azorius enchantment style deck.
Yeah, that deck is like pennies, right?
It's like it's $60 tops,
which
and I think the most
for
expensive
a constructed
card
deck is pretty pennies.
It's pretty good. I think the most expensive card is like some of the lands that aren't that came
that are
out
just
last
always
year.
going to be $10 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool that you can just build a deck out of your Duskmourn bulk and it will be decent, which I don't think we've seen in a Standard set for quite a while now. And it's really good to see.
I think the closest thing we had was Bant Toxic there for a second, but that deck was still sneaky pricey because of lands. But like all the best cards were all just like Phyrexia, all will be one, block, constructed.
Just uncommons.
Just all the weird toxic cards, yeah.
Yeah.
But even that was the first time in a long time too. But
yeah. And Standard is the next RCQ season as well, so we're going to see some innovation there.
Goodness. I'm ready to watch people play Standard again.
I mean, so am I. Worlds is this month, and that is also going to be Standard. And you've got Duskmourn Draft as well. Like the limited set seems really strong. It seems to be very deep with a lot of, and the mechanics overlap with each other as well, which is great.
I forgot it was almost Standard Worlds time already. I forgot Worlds was happening at Vegas.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting it's almost time for Vegas.
It's like 3 weeks away, 2 weeks away.
If even,
2.5 weeks away.
I was going to say, my plane will be taking off in 16 days.
Wow.
Kind of crazy. And also, once again, we did get a comment on the last episode sometime late last week that was like, hey, you guys should try out Limited Duskmourn. I know you guys were saying on this episode that you don't really know how you feel about Duskmourn. Try out Limited. It's awesome. And that is what I just keep seeing. Like people who know Limited are talking about it as like a potential GOAT format, which is kind of crazy for our little silly haunted house creative
I don't think it's
format.
little, but
well, huge house the size of a plane.
Yeah, when you have like limited experts going, this is like a top 5 set.
Yep.
And all the other sets they talk about have bonus sheets, which add like a really fun layer to limited. The fact that there's no bonus sheets in this set, it's still crushing, is like a testament to how good the design is.
Definitely.
And the rest of it. So I will take back my comment about I wish Bloomburrow had a Pro Tour. Like making Duskmourn Worlds was the smart play.
Yes, definitely.
I'm really excited for Worlds.
Yeah, it seems to be a better format now than it was before. So And yeah, we do get to see people draft Duskmourn there as well, which should be sick. There's like 1 or 2 rares that people wish had been mythic or whatever, because they are a little game ruining or whatever you want to say. Yeah. But that's just classic Magic the Gathering limited format. There's never going to be a great limited format without a rare that accidentally blows it up, right?
Yeah.
That's enough about Duskmourn. For all of the flaws, all the complaints I may have about its creative, love to see it succeeding from the meaningful side, which is to say gameplay impact, limited, having sick designs, having sick cards that are impacting formats in positive ways. Really quick, we missed a super drop. Oh no, we didn't talk about a super drop. The Camp Totally Safe super drop, which had such barn burners as Ghostbusters, Chucky, and for some reason, a second Ghostbusters. Wow. A lot of other horror themed stuff, which is maybe why I just passively ignored it to begin with. There was also a Tsune Miku, some really cool monsters, old cards being put into the Duskmourn frame, like really good old cards, Phyrexian Metamorph, Cauldron Familiar, Dothy Voidwalker, Magus of the Moon, Witches Oven. That's a sick lineup.
They're pretty sweet.
I did almost impulse buy that one, and then I said, wait a second, no, I'm saving money right now, and then I did not.
Vegas is soon. I need
to save money for that one big dinner I'm gonna have. Any of these pop out at you, Emma? Have you been a Secret Lair purchaser? No,
not really. Like the only 2 I bought is the one with the mystery booster box because I really want MBT.
The Vegas,
so I want MBT
festival in a box.
And the other one was the Sheldon drop because it's Sheldon and it goes to a good cause. Usually I buy singles because that's how I mostly interact with Magic these days, because I'm actually saving money by buying singles over sealed product. Yep. If you love opening boosters, great, go for it. But over time, I have learned it's like, cool, these Secret Lair treatments are great and I would love to have some of them. I'll just wait until there's circulation on the market and pick them up.
Yep, definitely. And poking around the website a little bit too, it looks like some of these older stuff, like some of the D&D 50th anniversary Super Drop stuff is available. Festival in a Box is sold out, but it looks like not barely anything at all. Like Showcase Duskmourn is sold out, but a lot of this other stuff is not sold out. Like Monstrous Magazine's foil edition, they've already put on sale for $35 instead of $40. Must not be selling super well on that one. Yeah, none of these bundles are sold out either, at least from what I can see. There's still Hatsune Miku stuff in stock. This has been live for a minute.
That's wild.
This has been live for almost a week. So maybe they really just like pumped up the numbers on production, or maybe this is just kind of a flop. I don't know. One more product. This is one that I will probably be suckered into buying. You said it was for a good cause. The Extra Life Secret Lair is here, and it's called Pixel Perfect. It features 8-bit adjacent Castlevania like styled cards with a tiny Fibblethip fighting against a Nico Bolas, kind of like in a diorama across. They look so sick. I wish we were a video podcast right now. I put them on screen, but so you're going to have to look and find them yourself. But the card list is crazy. Mana Geyser, Lightning Bolt, Fierce Guardianship, hello, and also Delayed Blast Fireball, one of my favorite spells that isn't very good, but I still love to play. So Lightning Bolt and Fierce Guardianship are obviously, I think, kind of the 2 winners here. Lightning Bolt, yes. You never have enough awesome printings of that card. Fierce Guardianship is... $40? I don't know if it's still $40.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's around 40. Commander Masters cards spiked back up pretty quickly.
Classic.
After release.
Fierce Guardianship, $40. Secret Lair, not many. We haven't seen many hyper playable, relatively expensive cards in Secret Lairs basically ever. This is very close to a first. I'm sure there have been some. Don't quote me on that. Don't quote me. But Fierce Guardianship feels like a big one. It's kind of crazy. So not only do these cards look really cool, but there is 2 extremely playable cards in this, and also 2 kind of niche playable, really good, quite good situationally cards in here as well. And it looks sick, and it's for a good cause. This is my kind of Secret Lair. I hope it's unlimited stock. It won't.
It is.
Oh, thank goodness! It's a pre-order.
This prince.
Yay!
It's print to demand.
Wow, the cool ones they're printing to demand? That's crazy.
Well, it's for charity, like the Sheldon one.
Yep.
It's like they do this.
It's almost like they could do this with every secret layer, Emma.
Yeah. Interesting thing with Delayed Blast Fireball, I believe this is the first foil copy of the card. Because it was in a commander set, a Baldur's Gate commander set. So it only had like an extended art printing.
Yeah.
So if you're a fan of the card and you want to bling out your deck, this is the only foil copy you can get of it. So that will have some premium as well, along with Big Guardianship and Lightning Bolt.
I forgot that there wasn't a a foil for it.
It was in a commander set of Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
I think it was
it was in the Prosper deck. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if you flip that guy off Prosper,
Whee!
3 mana, 5 damage to each
racing.
opponent. Yay! I don't have to foretell this junk. Woohoo!
So if you play that card in Commander and you want a foil copy because it's like the last foil, non-foil in your deck and it annoys you, you can pick one up soon.
And they look really fun as well.
They do. It's extremely my jam because I love that sort of pixel stuff.
Yep.
So I'm probably going to pick it up.
Well, all of that being said, speaking of things that Emma likes, it's time to move on to the co-host's notebook. Welcome to the co-host notebook, the part of the show where our co-hosts, in this instance co-host, tell us a little bit about what they've had going on, what they're doing, what they're pogging on, to use an industry term. Emma, what do you have written down in your co-host notebook?
So I finished Baldur's Gate 3, finally.
Finished?
As in finished Act 3. Done my first playthrough.
Okay, yes.
Not finished, but I don't think you can ever be finished.
Way farther than I've made it.
Of Baldur's Gate 3. I think it took like 80 hours in the end, which apparently is on the low side.
I was going to say, it does seem pretty quick.
The game's great. I've already started my second playthrough, about 10 hours in, so... I've been enjoying that. I haven't done too much, to be honest, just because I've been so busy with work. Counting down the days until Dragon Age Veilguard comes out, which is like 2 and a bit weeks now. So
same, but this game I forgot existed until like 2 days ago. I was hyped for it when it was announced, and then I kind of forgot that it existed. And I'm immediately blanking on the name.
It's the Atlas Persona-like
Metaphor Refantasio, which is Persona, but a little more action RPG.
Persona without a school.
Set in a fantasy world instead, yeah. So I'm looking forward to that one. Persona 5 was like the last game that truly took over my life, so we're in danger here, Emma.
I was like...
And I assume once Dragon Age comes out, I will not be hearing from you.
I will be on the podcast, but that'll be the only time you'll hear or see me.
You'll be your only public appearance. Hello.
I'm taking off.
I just slept 3 hours.
I'm taking off the Friday of the release to play it. Like, it's that.
Nice.
It's that kind of a deal for me. I'm just kind of plodding along until that comes out.
Just biding your time, trying not to get too invested into anything.
Baldur's Gate's been a really good sort of
yeah.
I hate to say Baldur's Gate's like a stopgap because the game is so massive, but it's been a really nice stopgap.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna play a bit of that, go into Dragon Age for a while. I'll probably pick up Baldur's Gate 3 in the new year again because I want to do all the Origin playthroughs because apparently they're quite fun and there's a ton of them. Mm-hmm. So I'm not short on playing games. I am short on time playing games because being an adult, but
it is kind of hard to find the time sometimes when you have a whole adult life.
Overrated,
going on,
I tell you.
I know, I'm a little over it. I am a little over it, I gotta admit. Well, I'm glad that you've been appreciating your time with Baldur's Gate 3. I see you also ate some cheese. That
is fairly evergreen for me. I just wanted to add something to the notes. Haven't eaten anything fancy, just some brie because we've entered soup season. So I've been having a lot of grilled cheese and soup. The cheese being grilled, being brie because brie is really good with grilled cheese.
Yum! That sounds great to me. I love a good grilled cheese. What's better than cheese? Hot cheese on bread.
Do you know the trick to a good grilled cheese?
No, personally, I just like throw American cheese on bread and go to town.
How dare you?
I like that. I love American cheese.
Instead of butter to spread on your bread before you like grill it, you spread it in mayonnaise.
Oh yes, I love mayonnaise.
Good. Okay, yeah, but
yes.
When Ross told me like when Ross was like you should use mayonnaise, I'm like, excuse me, this is just like an American thing that you just want.
No, it's so good.
It is really good. When I tried it, I was like, holy moly, this is delicious. Sometimes I'll do one side mayonnaise on one side butter for a little bit of be a little fancy, but no, mayonnaise and grilled cheese.
It's so good.
No butter.
It's so good. I will co-sign this. I will co-sign this motion from Emma. Take it from both of us, and even better, if you can put a little jam on top.
Ooh.
I know.
Cranberry sauce is what I go to.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Or honey.
I put a lot of like strawberry jam on top of my grilled cheeses. And nice. A lot of people who I pitch that, I'm glad that you get it immediately, because a lot of people, I'm like, yeah, I put jelly or jam on my grilled cheeses or my melts or whatever. And they're like, huh? What are you talking about? I'm like, yeah, I'm putting... Have you ever had charcuterie before? You put fruit on cheese all the time.
You not cultured?
It literally just works. Come on, just try it out. It's awesome.
Brie and cranberry sauce is like a winning combo. Sometimes I put a little bit of honey in my grilled cheese, especially if I'm going with the mayonnaise, just so it adds a little sweetness, because you're getting a very savoury grilled cheese with the mayonnaise and the cheese. So that's a nice touch.
Yep.
Do you have a favourite cheese, Cal?
That's a great question. No.
Okay. I was expecting American cheese, but...
Well, I like American cheese in a very specific contexts. Like I like a good American cheese grilled sandwich, or I'll put it on my American sugar bread plus really cheap lunch meat plus mayonnaise plus yellow mustard sandwiches that I make,
God bless America.
Amen. But it's probably brie. Like if I just had to eat a cheese, it's brie.
So versatile.
Get a little apple in there.
Oof. Now you're cooking with gas.
Exactly. Now I'm cooking with oil.
For grilled cheese.
Olive oil. I'm cooking with the oil that came off of my processed craft single.
That's all a 2-for-1.
That's all we have for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We have a great interview coming up next. Emma, do you have anything to leave our listeners with?
No, but make sure you take plenty of naps. It's hibernation season, therefore naps.
Yes, definitely. That's how I've been feeling the last day or two. It's not sunny outside. I am laying down.
I was just like, the sun's down. That means I'm down.
All right, everyone. Goodbye. Go take a nap. After you listen to the second half of the episode, bye! Hey there. Thanks for listening to this podcast episode. If you want to help support the podcast, check out our Patreon. You'll get a sticker in the mail and access to our Patreon exclusive content, which I'm always cooking up more of every day. We've got bonus questions with guests, exclusive interviews, me thought dumping about magic in my life. What else could you want? Plus, when we read letters to the editors, those sent through Patreon DMs or the Discord get first priority. Yep, we have a Discord that you'll be thrown into. Come talk to me about professional wrestling. Anyways, without any further ado, let's get back into this episode. And welcome back. As always, here in the second half of the show, we have an awesome guest. And on this episode, I am joined by the one and only Tracy, or as their Twitter handle alludes to, the other Tracy. So maybe not the one and only Tracy, but today I'm joined by Tracy. Say hello, Tracy.
I'm the only one you're going to remember. That's the point of the handle.
The only one I'm going to remember?
Not the only one, but like that's the, I found, I chose that handle in a fit of pique years ago because I had a previous handle that someone named a podcast that was a similar thing and I kept getting tagged and stuff and fine, I'm the other Tracy. It turns out when you're the other Tracy, no matter what your frame of reference is for Tracy's, I'm always the other one. So it's memorable. It's not, it doesn't beat you over the face with it, but like, yeah, I'm the other Tracy. It's fine.
That makes sense. Well, Tracy, if it makes you feel any better, you're my one and only Tracy.
Aww.
There is no other Tracy for you to be the frame of reference against. You are the Tracy.
Tracy McGrady?
Who?
Okay.
I'm 27.
Basketball player.
Oh. Basketball's never been my sport.
Fair enough. I'll try and I'll rack my brain for a Tracy who played for the Tigers, and we'll go
for the Detroit Tigers.
For the Detroit Tigers,
sure there's one.
Or if there's a Tracy who played for the Colts, that might also be a line I could follow.
Maybe.
Beyond that, unless there's someone who's named Tracy who works at Wario's. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, there was a Tracy Jones who played for the Tigers. As one of his 5 different teams. So maybe not an all-timer, but
no, I mean, listen, you need a role player who can fill a specific spot in a roster. And sometimes that means you play for 5 teams across. How long was the career? How long how long you last?
Oh, all of 5 years.
5 years. Okay. So a team a year is really not that great.
It's not incredible.
I mean, you're not an all-timer, you're a part-timer.
Yeah.
But still,
it's not, and this was like in the late 80s too.
Yeah, so. This is me who has never even, I've barely attended professional sports, let alone the man in question could absolutely athlete around me in his prime. So
same.
By all means,
sure.
Whatever he can listen. If you get 5 years in doing a thing that you want to do, go for it.
It is also very funny that this one, Tracy, does happen to share my last name. So it all just kind of works together.
And it reminds me of Casey Jones, like the Fable. So like it's all, there's just all kinds of synchronicities abound.
Yes. All right. Other Tracy, only Tracy, Tracy. Hi, welcome to the podcast. I have you on today. We're going to talk about a couple different things, but what I wanted to talk about first is something that is new to the podcast as of this episode. Obviously, you have already heard a lot about it by this time, but the Herald's Horn has joined the One Shot Podcast Network. Tracy, can you tell me a little bit about the one? Well, I know a lot about it. Can you tell the audience a little bit about the One Shot Podcast Network? What's up with One Shot?
I work for a podcast network called the One Shot Podcast Network, and it was started, it would have been 13 or 14 years ago now. So like in terms of what it began as, which was a tabletop role-playing game, actual play show where you get a group of, in this case, when the show started, mainly improvisers, because James D'Amato, the guy who co-founded it, was big into he went to Second City. He was big into the Chicago improv scene. And so he played RPGs. It's like, I know a lot of really funny and talented people. Let's put mics in front of them and dice and let's see what happens. And so
it's like really ahead of its time, even.
Yeah, absolutely.
That long ago.
It carved out a real good space for itself, because One Shot has been proceeding continuously pretty much since it started. James is not the host any longer, but he a few years after that started a longer form show called Campaign, and then across the years, there have been additional shows that have come onto the network to be tabletop RPG interview and discussion shows about movies and relationships and other nerdy things. And very recently, in preparation for our upcoming Patreon drive, which we are calling, of all things, One Shot Toberfest, which I like very much because I'm a nerd. We have invited 4 new shows to join the network, and 3 of those sort of fit into the mold of what we have traditionally done, which is tabletop RPGs. But it's been my project to put this drive together. And when I went out looking at existing shows, because speaking very pragmatically, one of the ideas of like doing this ahead of a Patreon drive is because we want to bring new audiences to what we do. And the flip is also true, right? We want all the new shows who come on to potentially find new audiences amongst the people who are already listening to shows that we do. And like Cal and I know each other. We're acquaintances. We've been to a Magic event or two together. And Harold's Horn is a good ass show, right? It's like you do really well at what you do.
Thank you.
You have
you said good ass show, and I was like, Look,
yeah, you just nodded along very sagely. It was like you're like, yeah,
yes.
you know what,
Tracy, you are so wise.
Just speaking the truth. It is, oh shit, that's my show. Hang on. Yeah. No, but it's it's you have a really good diversity of perspectives through you and the co-hosts. You get on excellent guests. And I think for not for our purposes, but like sort of one of the things is that there's kind of like, for lack of a better term, a vibe check, right? Like, are you going to fit in with sort of the culture of what we have going on at the network? Because how we all interact with each other and how we like help each other out is really important. And one of the big hallmarks, because we do tabletop role-playing games, there's not really much Dungeons and Dragons on our network. D&D is...
Why not?
Well, because D&D is ubiquitous. If you want to find people doing D&D stuff, there's plenty of it out there. And especially back when One Shot started, D&D was all you could find if you were trying to listen to people play games. And so James started running other stuff.
I was going to say, so not to expose how entirely uncultured I am when it comes to the role-playing space.
Sure.
Because try as I might, as big of a nerd as I am, for whatever reason, most tabletop RPG stuff has just not clicked with me. It's my greatest nerd shame. Not really, but listen, I've come to accept that about myself.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Was the One Shot started pre Pathfinder even?
No.
Okay. I just don't remember how long ago the like 4E being so unpopular it caused people to create an entire new popular.
So I started playing in 2000 when 3rd edition launched. 4th edition came out in about 2008. The first actual play I remember listening to ever was when the Penny Arcade crew played 4th edition and just decided to record it. And that led me to find other stuff. And One Shot, if I'm doing my math right, it would have been about 2010. So 4th edition was out. That means that Pathfinder had already spun off 3.5. So Pathfinder was out already. And there's even back then, there were so many games that were not the colonialist fantasy that is Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes,
and it's one thing that it is that, and then the other thing that it is also not actually a game, which sounds really strange. Like there's a lot of words and there's a lot of rules, but a lot of tabletop RPGs over the years have evolved like this sense of playing to accomplish a certain narrative emulation, or like you're trying to capture an experience, or you're driving towards a particular thing. And D&D on the tin says, be a fantasy hero, go tell epic stories, but that's not what the game actually tells you to do. You as a group have to choose to engage with it in that way, which is a feature and not a bug for some people. But like,
it's like a very, very huge sandbox with which there's some framing there, but then you have to decide what to do with it.
Exactly. And that makes it in and of itself a toolkit, a strong toolkit in a lot of ways, but not necessarily a game in the sense that I think a lot of, at least my contemporaries, think about them these days. What were we talking about?
Oh, we were just you were talking about a strong part of the One Shot Network.
Oh yeah, right.
There's no D&D there.
We don't usually do a whole lot of D&D, and there are for a myriad of reasons, people who do stuff in the Magic community who will go out of their way not to say anything negative about Wizards of the Coast, because depending on what your aim is, you may want loading ready run style partnerships, or you want to be the command zone, right? You want to do the big things. Unfortunately, I think there's room. Wizards seems, at least the Magic side, seems to be like, okay, well, we'll work with people who speak honestly about what we do. I mean, we see that happen, at least from time to time, but like, it's also really good to just be honest about what goes on with them, because while Magic is a game that you and I both love, we're still talking about a multi-billion-dollar corporation owning this subset that does Magic and D&D. And those are the profit drivers for like the entire company. So when you've got that and things like, I don't know, sending the Pinkertons after someone who got misshipped cards for a set that no one liked, it's good to be critical, or at least highly analytical about what's going on with the decisions that big corporation makes. And that's like, maybe that's like a bar so low that it's like walking across a stick in the yard, but it still means something to me, because in addition to that, I have at least some knowledge of how the four of you all operate, right? Mostly parasocially, but like I've been on Dan's streams, right? I've played games with them. I've seen how they comport themselves. Lexi, I know largely by reputation, but he's fantastic. Like Lexi's just amazing. Emma,
Lexi is simply one of my best friends, so I would agree with your reputational assessments.
Right, Emma, I know less, but I've heard her on the show. I have seen her words. She is smart. She knows what she's talking about. So yeah, it really, and there's a lot of overlap in terms of like player base with indie RPGs and Magic, and RPGs in general and Magic. And I think that the barriers between the two are thinning a little bit more all the time. It's happening with Warhammer too, right? There's a lot of crossover with Warhammer and the Magic communities right now. But I think it was a smart idea, again, pragmatically, to take advantage of that, right? And then the flip side of it is, you're my friend, you make a cool show, and I have this company that I work for that does a thing that might be able to help boost your profile, while you also get to introduce new people to us. So yeah, let's go for it.
It's a little bit of a win-win all around, I'd say.
It seems like it. It felt like that phrase needed to come out of my mouth, and somehow I talked all the way around it. So thank you for just like, sliding that home. I appreciate you.
Of course. So it like Tracy and I were introduced to each other like in the funniest way possible, which is that we both happen to go to the same coffee shop, and I think, and we're both regulars at the same coffee shop.
Yes.
I guess we should say, such that we at least are on a chatty Cathy a level of friendship with the employees there.
Yeah, exactly. And then I ran a chaos draft there.
Yes, exactly. But it was very much just like, hey, Cal, there's another person who comes in who plays Magic the Gathering. We know you play Magic the Gathering. And I think you heard much the same from them as well. There's one other person. There's another guy who comes in here.
And also, right, like, so I spent a lot of my time at conventions for role-playing stuff, Gen Con, Origins, that sort of thing, like really working to get to know people, and not from like the, hey, if I get to know this person, that can introduce me to more opportunities, and blah, blah, blah. That was part of it. But I have like this radar for like, oh, this seems like someone I should pay attention to. And it was like a week or two before that you played Magic with Posty at the concert.
Oh yeah, holy moly.
So I you were doing all of the playing with power stuff, and I was like, oh, I want eyes on this guy, right? Like I want to know what's going on. And when I found out that you were a regular at the coffee shop, I was like, okay, listen, we need to get Cal and Jen to this draft. It needs to happen because I need to meet them because I want the potential for there to be more than just, I want to keep an eye on that guy, right? Like I'm neurodivergent. I think about things maybe a little bit differently sometimes. Friendship is I don't know.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we came to the Chaos Draft, and the rest is history.
Yeah, exactly.
I got stomped. I think I went like 0-3. I do not think I saw much success.
It was a tough draft. The dude that won out, did you know how that ended with the card that got pulled from the...
No, I think I left before the actual end because we had like someplace to be or something, but...
I got real lucky. I'd reached out to a buddy of mine who actually works for Wizards. We know each other from conventions, and I played like backroom Magic drafts with him, a couple times. And it was like it was a long shot. I was like, "Hey, I'm doing this Chaos Draft. Do you think that Wizards could chuck me any like pack support for like, a box to crack or something?" You just like. I've purchased all these draft packs. They're bringing their own too, but and from his own collection, he sent a box of convention mystery boosters that we used very gladly.
Oh yes,
and then the first place prize, or the top prizing for that was I had an unopened pack of Italian Legends. And they were going to booster draft it, right? You crack it, and the first player takes a card. The first card was an Italian Chains of Mephistopheles, which is like a $600 card when printed in English, and it's not shabby in Italian either.
No, definitely not.
So yeah, Phil was very very fortunate with that particular pack. Now, Legends are a pack type that can be searched because of the nature of the plastic on the pack. So maybe my buddy did me a solid. I don't know. But it was still a pack of Italian Legends, and that was pretty cool. And anyway, and as you said, the rest is history. Yeah, we've been around each other online, and when I saw Herald Toward Spin Up, I was like, oh yeah, not only is it Cal, I see these other people around too. I'm very happy to see this. So yeah, it was a lot of good timing all around.
Tracy, what do you do for One Shot?
Let's see. So my official title,
besides sneaking around and going, hey podcasts.
Hey, you got a really cool.
Those people seem pretty nice.
You got a really cool show. You want to come here? So I started off just doing editing for One Shot, the show itself, and that was like my primary gig for a long time. But when I had an interview with James, because I had it's very much the same kind of thing, except I'm not working for you at this point in time. But like I had seen James, I'm like, I see him at conventions. I want to get to know him. I want to be around. I want to have a chance to see what's up with him. And I got to run a game on One Shot a while ago. And I had the chance to like meet with him and pitch like me as a person who I'm basically a Swiss Army knife when it comes to what I do as a freelancer, right? Like I can edit audio, I can do some graphic design, I can do video editing, I can do project management, I can do game writing, editing, and layout. I can do social media management, content management for websites. Like I do things. And One Shot is a network that had a lot of things that needed to be done because James was doing a lot of it by himself, and he had big projects that had just not gotten wrapped up, like Kickstarter stuff that we need to get this document edited, and I need to get with the developer, just like logistical things. So I do audio editing. I do a lot of logistical maintenance of projects. I am primarily the network at large, like coordinator. So if someone who has a show on the network has an issue, there's a technical problem with like the hosting, or there's something up with the website or whatever, really they have something new they want to do for their Patreon and they want to figure out how to do it, then that's my job to talk to them and say, hey, what do you want to do? Let's see what we can do. Because as a network, we don't have like big financial coffers. That's kind of why we're doing a Patreon drive, right? We want to boost that part up. But what we have in abundance is a lot of really talented, creative, engaged, and interested people. who enjoy working with other engaged, talented, creative, whatever the adjectives I used, interesting was on there, people.
Creative.
I say
like
so many times, right? Yeah. But like connecting smart and talented people with other smart and talented people and letting them bounce off of each other and see what happens is like one of the greatest joys that I have. It's professionally, like it's really, really good to bring people together and say, hey, you two might want to work on something. And then like you find out that not only have they planned a project down the road, but they've solved like 2 or 3 ongoing problems for each other because, you know, an outside perspective, just a conversation about what you're experiencing can go a long way. And for the rest of my life, I'm a stay-at-home parent. I'm home with 2 kids with like, they'll be 2 in December and 4 in June. So like real close, real young. I like talking to people who know how to use complete sentences. We're getting there with we're getting there.
Slowly getting there.
The 3-year-old will fully converse. It's the amount she talks is wild to me, but it's still talking to a 3-year-old and not an adult. So no, it's really it's fun work. Like I for our Patreon, I coordinate a project where every month I work with a new game designer to develop an original micro RPG of like 1,500 words. They write it, I edit it, I lay it out, and we publish it on the Patreon. And then once a year, we roll those together into an anthology of PDFs, and we do a Kickstarter to publish that anthology. We just had our first anthology kickstart back in August, and I should be finishing up the layout on the full bundle of all 12 games sometime by the end of the month. I'm planning the entire Patreon drive. Like that's all of it. It's just what I don't work well in traditional jobs. I never have. Prior to finding a really good job as a beer buyer, I worked at Wylands locally, since you probably know. I was the beer buyer there for 2 years and change until the first kiddo came along, and I had the opportunity to quit that and start working for WotC. And in the now 3.5 years since, because I've been with WotC like a month longer than my kid has been alive.
That's kind of wild.
It is. But that's the longest I've ever held a job. I've never worked for one entity for that long because my particular brand of neurodivergence comes into a place and sees the problems immediately and wants to start fixing them. And I had a history of overpromising and underdelivering, which is the opposite of what you want. And so I've learned to slow myself down. I've learned to take more time to think about things and to communicate more thoughtfully and effectively. Most of the time, I still have not the best track record there, but I'm getting better. And I get to use literally everything I have ever learned how to do as a creative professional. I've been writing and publishing my own tabletop games for just about as long as WotC's been around. I think they started a year before I did. And all of it is just like it all is coming together right now, especially because I got into podcasting and audio editing because of Campaign, their long form Star Wars game they started doing. So like there's, again, synchronicities abound. Cal Jones.
Definitely. So you do everything.
I do a little bit of everything. There are like the core network shows, like the ones that we put money into, to pay performers or pay guests. James runs Campaign. That's his show. He also has the Ultimate RPG podcast, which is based on a line of books he's published through Adams Media, and all that. But like, he has a lot of that. He has that going on, right? And he used to host One Shot. Now Dylan Appelian is our host. We did an extensive audition process. We had a top 5 auditioners who all got to run their own one-shot games that James played in, and then like our audience got to give feedback on it. But like when you record a one-shot, it's usually 3 to 4 hours of recorded content, which translates into 3 to 4 1-hour episodes, which takes a month-ish to air one series. So five auditioners meant that it took us 5 months to air their audition episodes. And then we had to decide who was going to get the host job. So, I do a lot, but it's like work used to always bum me out. Even this work, right? I just used to, I don't want to sit down and work. I want to
it turns out
video games.
Even when work is enjoyable, work can still be hard.
But very recently, like the last, 4 or 5 months, I've really sort of turned a corner with this work in particular, because it has settled deep into me that I am literally living my dream. Are we as financially stable as we would want to be? No, we're not, but that's coming. I mean, I've got other stuff coming down the pipe with other people, because I'm a contractor, right? I can, I'm going to be doing some video editing coming up. It's going to be a nice thing, but I get to work with amazingly talented and creative and driven people who make their shows for the same reasons why I got into making my things in the first place. It's just because they wanted to do it. And we can all help each other do a little bit more and a little bit better if we're all pushing like together. So it's cool.
In that exact vein.
Yeah.
You've just said, that a lot of what you appreciate about what you do is working with talented, cool people who are creative, et cetera, et cetera. And even when you were talking about why you chose to bring on the Herald's Horn or, various other shows that you're bringing on as part of this Patreon push and expansion of the network, big emphasis on the people. Would you say that maybe at your core you are a bit of a community builder?
Oh, hey, it's in the title of the show, folks. Look at him. He doesn't miss. Yeah, no, I mean, pardon me. It's funny because I think when I started out like putting myself into the public sphere, or which just meant Twitter, right? Like that's when Twitter was a functional and going concern back in 2004. Like I remember breaking 100 followers because I was the only one with the laptop and the presence of mind at the convention in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where Wizards of the Coast announced D&D Next, like 5e for the first time, and they were going to talk about what it was and what they were doing with it. And it was an 800 person convention in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And no one was talking about it. So I just started live tweeting it. And I gained at that point in time, you could be put into Twitter jail. Your account would just be not allowed to tweet if you tweeted too often in an hour. So I had to go over to my other account, my RPG business account, to continue telling people what was happening on this panel. But when that was happening, a lot of me, admittedly, it's not the best look, but just wanted what I thought other people had, like that perceived. You see groups of actual friends interacting online, and also who happen to, one way or another, get access or perceived access to the upper echelons of these were people who were big 4E GMs who got to talk to people at Wizards and right? And the similar token, you see people in the Magic community who it's oh, well, they're an ambassador, right? They have swag from Wizards, and depending on how that program is communicated about, it's received better or not. And I'm really glad the Duskmourn ambassadors have received better than the last round, because that was not great.
It wasn't great there for a second. Yeah, for sure.
But I looked at those things and I just assumed it would sort of happen. I never really thought about what it took to get there. And it's been, it's been 12 years since that panel, right? Since that kickoff, if you will, because that was the same year I published my first game.
Yeah.
And I've learned in that time that what it takes is actually actively caring about people within the context that you're operating in, right? Like, I am friends with some of the people on the network. Like, we've gotten to know each other over the years, and people I would consider my friends. Most of them are very good work acquaintances, and that's fine, because my job is to ask them how their shows are going, how their creative thing that they pour their time and their energy into, that they get little very recompense for because of the nature of how creative work is funded these days. And I get to say, hey, is there anything I can help you with? And by doing that, and by having my answer, if they say, oh, I could use X, Y, or Z, is to go, well, so-and-so over here on this show knows X, Y, and Z. Let's go talk to them, right? Like, I'm not making it about myself for the first time in a long, long time. And I would like to think like I didn't do any damage as I primarily thought about myself coming up, but I'd be naive to think I didn't. But at least now I know that I am actively trying not to, rather than just assuming I won't, right? So like I want to make sure that people have space, more space to do what it is they need to do, and that they meet other people who help them get that space. And I guess if you want to call that community building, like when I think about community building, I think about people like Bobby Christine, right? If you're not familiar, right? Bobby Christine is an amazing, amazing literal community builder. She, just by dint of how she engages with people and the intentionality with which she acts, she created an entire Discord server community that ended up not just being like about her and her channel, but kind of like WotC, other creators, other people who stream Commander content, who make art using magic, moved their own Discord servers over there. So there's like, the Lobby Pristine
like a group
has
of people.
A Lobby Pristine has not just a group of people, but also a group of 8 sub communities that are all focused around those creators. Mm-hmm. And that is like, when I think about community building, that's what I think about. I think about the people who you want to listen to when there's a crisis happening, right? I think about the people who you will always be organizing the fundraisers or organizing the streaming events. Queen of Cardboard, Beth, is another glowing example, right? Like, and so if I like look at myself through that lens, I feel like the dude at the end of A Knight's Tale. I feel weighed, measured, and found wanting. However, the reality is I've also fortunately gained a little bit of ability to like acknowledge what I have done in a way that is not bombastic or self-aggrandizing. Like, I think I'm doing a pretty good job here.
There's a fine line too to not go to like self-demeaning.
Exactly.
Or
like, and I don't want to do that either.
Just the line I often fall under.
Yeah, it's
tend to make fun of myself.
It's hard, right? Like,
yes,
it's difficult to want to answer a question like that with what you feel is an honest assessment of yourself. But you're often far too hard on yourself because, we're our own worst critics. Well, we are, but we also remember everything we've done and no one else knows all that. So there's more evidence, and that means that your bias is stronger, and it's hard to get around that sometimes. But I think I'm doing a pretty good job with this, and I'm very happy with the quality of the work that I've been putting in. I'm very happy with the quality of person that I get to work with. And if the measure of a good community is people who are willing to be there for one another and all sort of move in one direction together, at whatever speed, it doesn't have to be like a rush, but like you're all sort of going, we're rushing now because this drive is coming up, right? But everyone's kind of moving as one. And it's really good. It feels really good to be able to look back and go, I helped do this. And that's what I think it is I helped do it. I said, I have things I know how to do, and I see needs that should be met, and conversations that need to be had that aren't being had because there's not time from the other person who had the responsibility of having those conversations. Like, you're stretched thin, it's too much. And so right now, in this particular moment, I'm the one who gets stretched thin, right? That's my job. I'm the one who gets stressed. I'm the one who has too much to do. Anyone else, if I ask for help for a specific thing for the drive, that's coming. Like, that help, that ask will come. But like, for now, as we're just going about our day to day, like, you make your thing, make the show, do the thing that you do, and I'll help try and figure out the other stuff. Like, how do we promote ourselves in a world where every single platform just wants our data and doesn't want us to thrive, right? Like, how do we find new audiences? How do we do all that stuff that everyone's trying to do when you're trying to make art in the face of capital? Like, it's hard. And I have far from all the answers, but I know that together is better than not. And that's kind of the principle I'm operating under right now.
Definitely. And I think that is a wonderful way to operate. Tracy, I think when I think of building community, what community needs to succeed, I think that's a huge part of it. I think, like, much like you said, Bobby, Christine, Beth, Queen of Cardboard, I think when I think of like someone who's a community builder, I think a little bit on a different side, but there's still a facilitator. That I think, like, a facilitator of spaces is like kind of what I think of, and my mind goes to Logan, better known as Seraph.
Oh
6,
yeah, absolutely,
or what have you, who does it in like a very technical sense, in that he is very happy to help anyone.
Tools, yeah.
Yes, he is happy to help anyone wield the tools that keep spaces safe, or keep spaces, help spaces scale to a nice size, or on and on and on. For he just reopened what was the original Commander Discord today. Wow. The RC Discord.
Yeah.
He reopened it today under a new name and with a new community focus. It's basically like a non-official fan space now that he is running with the help of some other people. Just kind of crazy. But
in the face, because this is, I mean, if I remember right, I should remember right. We're only a week after we're recording. We're recording this a week after the announcement.
And this is going to be on the episode.
On the episode, I'm sure
Dan and Emma, and I'm sure whoever is listening has already listened to Dan and Emma.
Yeah.
And hopefully Lexi and I, talk about it for who knows how long.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't want
this episode. You're on the episode.
I don't want to go, because we don't need to rehash the specifics, right? But you're absolutely right that Logan and people who do things like that, which I guess to some degree that's the kind of thing I'm doing too, is just you make space, because when the whole thing was falling out, I saw, and I actually just looked it up while you were talking, Dan Sheehan,
yes.
iBreak, had a really amazing thread about what community is, because it's a word that gets used a lot, especially in and you may notice that I have avoided using the phrase content creation at any point in time heretofore, because I hate it. It is difficult for me to say the word art sometimes, but even a Commander stream is a piece of art. It is an artistic expression. It takes creative skill to accomplish that, and so I think should be considered thusly. But Dan said, I'm gonna pull a few quotes as I'm just reading down this thread. The community is a great rhetorical device. There's a warm and inviting quality to thinking of yourself as a part of a scrappy little group of niche obsessives, and there's no shortage of content referring to the community with a hushed reverence. But large or content creators and large corporations all have substantial financial interest in making you feel more like a friend than a consumer. So phrases like consumers and followers get replaced with words like community. But all of it is in service of making the numbers go up. Your interest may, and I'm very much just paraphrasing Dan because I agree with him, and I want to carry this forward to more conversation. But like, it's not that your interests aren't aligned with these entities. It's not that you don't have common goals sometimes. But a corporation, a content creator, will never be. It's not necessarily a community unless explicit steps are taken to make it that, because otherwise you are falling into the same trap that I fell in earlier in my career, where I just assumed it would happen because I was there and interacting with people. And I interact with people long enough in the community forums. And yes and no, it's obviously messy and complicated because humans are messy and complicated. But like when we talk about an online community, when we talk about places where friendships are formed, places where deep emotional bonds between people get forged, and where you find people who, will always have your back, right? Who will call when the come when the call happens, right? Making spaces where that can happen takes intention, and it doesn't have to be a ton of intention, but it has to be the willingness at the base to say, kind of like Sheldon said, and it's the card that got quoted a lot when the stuff was happening and all of the threats were happening. Hate has no home here. And it's again, like community, it's a lovely phrase, but if you mean it, if you act like you mean it, if you hold others to the standard of acting like they mean it, then suddenly hate does have no home here, and you've built a community. You've built a space where people can be vulnerable with one another, where they feel safe to be themselves, and will work to correct any missteps or flubs they've made or hurts they've caused, rather than burn the whole place down because they feel betrayed by what they saw as a community that they actually had no strong part in.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And to go back around to Dan's thread here, the tweet said, comment sections aren't communities, Twitter threads aren't communities, fandoms aren't even communities. Your community is at your table, your LGS, your Discord server, the friends you have at home, the friends we made along the way, et cetera, et cetera. It's the people you've made the conscious decision to spend time with and the things you've built together. So when I see posts like, the community failed us this week, I roll my eyes. The community didn't fail. People did. They're individuals with names who made a choice to file it away as some shared shame, gives them anonymity, and lets them hide under that big banner.
And personal accountability is, I think, a step that a lot of people miss in all of this. We're very fond of holding other people personally accountable. It is rarely as comfortable when you are yourself held to account for your actions. And I try to be very honest about my shortcomings. I got them. I'm not gonna, there was a game for our book club where I was stressed out because of any number of other things, and I not only did a poor job on the initial edit for it, but the way I communicated with the writer was very dismissive and very condescending without intending to. I had feedback, as I think back, I had feedback that I meant to give that could have just corrected the problems in the text and we could have moved on. And instead, the way that I chose to present it, I don't know the person personally. They are someone that our interests aligned to work with, right? But down the road, I have damaged my ability to be in community with that person, should that ever come up, right? I'm messed up. And me owning it even now, or me apologizing to him via email, is fine. I can take those steps. I can take those actions. But like, if we were to ever interact again, it's his choice whether or not he wants to interact with me, because I probably upset him. And I think he had a right to be upset because I didn't do a good job at all. The work still got done. So like, hey, that's one thing, but like, that's not the whole thing. And I think that where a lot of people fall apart is they focus on the work still got done, that sort of thing. It's like, oh, it's not that big. Well, no, it is a big deal, right? Like, that's a person who gave me creative work, who put their heart in a Google Doc for me, to one degree or another. And I didn't treat it with the care that I should have. And that sucks. And I'm going to try to do better next time. You know, that's, yeah, you got to be accountable for your actions. That's why I am never rolling a die again when I want to decide to attack at a commander game.
Wait a second.
It's always Cal. I'm just gonna swing at Cal every time.
Yeah,
it's
just swing at me. It's me. I'm the spikiest player at the table, I'm sure, when we're playing. Just swing at me. Yeah, and that kind of self-reflection and being hard with yourself, I think, is a very important part of the whole process, because like you said earlier, you have to have a space and build a space where people can be vulnerable with one another can be vulnerable with themselves. And a big part of being vulnerable with yourself and making other people feel as if they can be vulnerable around you is if you're willing to admit where you've gone wrong and be better the next time. You know? Yeah.
And it sucks that process never stops, but it doesn't. There's always new ways to mess up. But that's okay, right? Like that's part of it, I guess, of doing this thing that we are all collectively doing.
Yep, definitely.
But yeah, I think that online spaces, I think Magic, I think tabletop role playing, all of them could use like 3 or 4 pumps of the brakes and some real honest conversation about what you want out of being in a space. Because if the answer is some version of more for you, more attention, more friends, more money, more affection, more notice, whatever it is, it's probably not, you're probably not, as they would say on The Bachelor, you're not here for the right reasons, right? Like, you got, and being honest about that kind of stuff is hard because it means you have to go, well, why would I feel that way? And then you start unpacking, I don't know, whatever you're unpacking. And that's what therapy's for. Like,
yes.
So yeah.
There's a lot of things to be worked through in a more professional setting than your
absolutely, yes. Your Discord server is not the place.
Community building tip number 2.
Community building tip, yeah. Don't just your server has a vent channel for a reason. Use it and be conscientious about your use of the vent channel. The vent channel.
The vent channel is one of society's greatest mistakes. In this essay, I will. Well, Tracy, I think we have had a great conversation, and that may be a weird place to end it, but I try to keep these things under an hour. So sure. I think we'll wrap it up around here.
That sounds good. I mean, I guess it would be my hope that if you listened through all of this, one, thank you very much, because there were a lot of words in that time to listen to. And 2, like, if you haven't already, if you have, hey, A+, go buy yourself a cheeseburger or something. Get yourself a little treat. If you've thought about how you want to reflect, how you want to engage with the spaces around you, right? Like what you bring in with you when you come into a space, how you're perceived when you interact with people. That's the autistic part of me, right? I'm like, I never know how I come across. This entire conversation, there's been a little voice in the back of my head going, "You want to slow it down there a little bit, Chip? You want to just like," and I don't feel bad about any of it, but like I think about that stuff all the time because I otherwise have no solid conception of myself in space and how I engage with people or the physical world around me even. So I have to think about it intentionally to even have a shot at coexisting with people. And the upshot of having done a lot of that thinking is that I have learned a lot of things that hopefully I can apply to other people. And maybe you have heard something helpful in this. I hope that'd be awesome. I would love it if that were the case.
Mm-hmm. Remember, everyone, be easy on yourself. It takes a lot of time. You have to be intentional with it. And also check out all of the other One Shot Podcast Network shows. Tracy, thank you for joining me on this episode of the Herald's Horn.
Thank you very much. I am going to take one quick opportunity to do a plug for the One Shot Toberfest that is coming October 15th through 30th on twitch.tv/OneShotRPG. We are having an event streamed every single night there. We have everything from horror RPGs to the usual fare of some, Jackbox type shenanigans and Among Us. I am also running 2 bespoke commander sessions. That is a sort of plane chase adjacent kind of setup, except instead of hopping from plane to plane, you're running through a demented little goblin's funhouse and some very familiar enchantments that from magic and may or may not will become global effects when you're in a given room. Who doesn't love a room where everyone has access to goblin bombardment?
Yeah, exactly. Sounds gas to me.
So that's all in support of our Patreon, which is patreon.com/oneshotpodcast. We have a ton going on there. There's new stuff going up for patrons as part of the drive as well. There's an entire series of the worldwide wrestling RPG is being put together by folks from across different shows. It's one of those situations we're at just shy of $5,000 a month. We're trying to get up closer to 7 because that would take us not just into the black, but comfortably looking at what can we do for new projects. And that would be amazing. Yep. But it's literally one of those, you're a subscriber to the Patreon. There are 4,000 of you. And there are 800 of you who pay. I understand things are tight, but it's literally if everyone chipped in $1, that'd be rocket fuel, right? Mm-hmm. So, everyone says this stuff, it's all the same. I get it. But if you like what we do, hey, patreon.com/oneshotpodcast is where you'll find that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I agree with Tracy. I'll put a link in the podcast description. Check it out.
Thank you. Yeah.
Should be a fun time.
Yeah.
Tracy.
And Cal, thank you for having me on.
Oh, of course. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Herald's Horn. Herald's Horn is hosted, edited, and produced by me, Cal Jones. The co-hosts are Emma Partlow, Lexi, better known as Black Girl Mage, and Dan, better known as Moderately Anonymous MTG. All of our info lives in the podcast description. If you want to reach out to me, whether with feedback, you want to give me money, or you just want to send a letter to the editor, hit up editorial@heraldshorn.com. Thanks again for listening to The Herald's Horn. We are having so much fun creating it. See you in 2 weeks.